Okay, you guys, moving on to lesson 2 in unit 7. We are going to learn today another way to solve our quadratic equations, okay? But today we're learning a way that uses something called the quadratic formula. Now, this is when we maybe use the factoring and then it doesn't come out to a nice even number. So when you get to the part where you're trying to pick your A, C, B, and F, and you get here and you're like, oh, okay, so these two numbers are like 42 and negative 10, right? And there's no numbers that work. That means that these two numbers are actually decimals. So if these do not work, so like these two together does not work, that means that the factors are decimals. And so we have to have a way to figure those numbers out, even though we can't think of them in our head. Okay, so that's where the quadratic formula comes into play. So this is the quadratic formula. And yes, it looks a little bit long. You will be given this on the test. So you don't necessarily have to memorize it. It's on the EOC formula sheet as well, but it's not named. So you have to know what it is, when to use it, and what the A, B, and C all stand for. Now, the A, B, and C are pretty easy because the A is the first term, the B is the second term, and C is always that number on the end, okay? There's also some catchy little tunes out there on YouTube that you can Google they put the quadratic formula to a song, so it helps you remember it, because we all know when things are in a song, we remember them easily. And so, pardon my singing here, but this is actually to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. So it says the quadratic formula goes like this. X equals opposite B plus or minus the square root B squared minus 4AC divided by 2A. All right, so if you sing that over and over again, that's honestly how I remember it every time I write it down. I sing it to myself. So we want to think about that every time, okay? You're welcome to hum it to yourself in the middle of the class or on a test or whatever it takes to remember it, right? So we're going to talk about how to use this and what we do with our calculator and things that we type in as well. We're only doing 4. It's not very hard, but it does kind of have a lengthy process to it, like most of these things. So first thing we're going to do every time is label our A, B, and C so we don't get confused about what those are. This obviously would be a 1 since there isn't anything there. And then we're going to start filling in the formula. So it's X equals, so again, we're solving for those X values like we did in the last one. X equals 4, X equals 3, but these are going to be decimals, so they're not quite as easy. So X equals opposite B. Opposite B means whatever this value is, we're going to make it its opposite. So this is a +1, we're going to put -1. Plus or minus means we're actually going to do 2 problems later, one with a positive and one with a negative. The square root of B squared, so 1 squared, we're always going to use parentheses there in case it's a negative, minus 4, 4 is going to be the same number every time, times A is 2, times C is -25, divided by 2, always stays, and then A, which is 2 again, okay? So here's what you're going to do. The very first thing you're going to type in your calculator is everything under the square root, okay? Type that in first. We're going to get one number to put underneath there, okay? So when you take 1 squared minus 4 times 2 times -25, you get 201. So I'm going to simplify this down. -1 plus or minus the square root of 201 divided by, and then 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? Now, when you type in the square root of 201, you get 14.18 rounded to the hundredths place. Okay? And we're always going to round to the hundredths place. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to make those 2 problems. One's going to be a positive and one's going to be a negative. So I'm going to start with -1 plus 14.18. That's what I get when I take the square root of 201 divided by 4. And then I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it with a minus sign. So negative 1 minus 14.18 divided by 4. Okay? You're going to keep these in parentheses so that you can do it all at once. And this gives me 3.29, again, rounded to the hundreds place. And this one gives me negative 3.80. And those would be my two answers. So obviously, if we were doing this the other way from yesterday, it wouldn't be very easy to do, okay? Because they're both decimals. All right, let's move on to the next one. So this one has two terms out here, which we need to get rid of because it has to equal 0, remember? So I'm going to add 2x squared, add 2x squared, and then this would be subtract 4, subtract 4. So let's get these all out of the way. This is going to be 3x squared minus 9x plus 6 equals 0. Okay. We don't worry about GCFs with this because it doesn't matter for us. We're just doing A, B, and C. Okay. So x equals opposite B, so positive 9, plus or minus the square root. B, which is negative 9 squared, minus 4 times A times C, so times 3 and times 6, divided by 2 times A, which is 3 again. Okay, so type in what's just underneath here. Negative 9 in parentheses squared minus 4 times 3 times 6, and we should get underneath 9. Okay, and then divided by, and that would be 6. All right, so I'm going to make my two problems, one positive, one negative. So I'm going to have 9 plus the square root of 9 would be 3 divided by 6. And again, 9 minus 3 divided by 6. Now, you can see these are going to turn out nice. So we could have used the quadratic formula or the factoring part for this one actually, but I'm showing you that it works for both. So 9 plus 3 is 12. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So there's my first answer. 9 minus 3 is 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Okay, so that one actually would have worked either way. Okay, here we go. Next problem. All right. Now we have, again, not equal to 0. So I'm going to get rid of both of these. I'm putting them with their like terms. So these are gone. I have 2x squared minus 6x minus 2 equals 0. And A, B, and C. So here we go. Hopefully you're singing it a little bit. X equals opposite B, so positive 6, plus or minus the square root B squared, so negative 6 squared, minus 4AC. B squared minus 4AC divided by 2A, and A is 2 again. Okay, so x equals 6 plus or minus the square root. When I type all of this in underneath here, I get 52 divided by, and 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so positive and negative problem. I have 6 plus the square root of 52 is 7.21 divided by 4, or 6 minus 7.21 divided by 4. If you type this in with your parentheses, you get 3.3. And this one, you get negative 0.3. And there's your two answers. Okay? Last one, you're doing great. Again, it's all about that formula. So this would be A, this would be C, and there's no B value in the middle. So that would be our 0. So B equals 0. Okay? Here we go. X equals opposite b, well, opposite b, 0 isn't an opposite, plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac. So times 4 times negative 6 divided by 2a. Okay? Now, x equals 0 plus or minus the square root. If I type all of this in, I get 96 divided by 8. So 0 plus the square root of 96, I get 9.8 divided by 8. And then here I would have 0 minus 9.8 divided by 8. Obviously, you wouldn't have to do the zeros, okay? And this gives you 1.23. And this one would give you negative 9.8 divided by 8 would be negative 1.23. So you get both of them the same this time, but they have positive, negative. Okay? So it's all about remembering that formula and plugging in your A, B,